The sizzle of garlic hitting hot oil filled the air as Amira deftly maneuvered around the bustling kitchen of the Al Rashid mansion. Her hands moved with practiced precision, chopping herbs and adjusting seasoning with an almost rhythmic quality. The aroma of slowly simmering stews and freshly baked bread wafted through the spacious room, a testament to her culinary prowess. Despite the controlled chaos around her, Amira remained focused, her dark eyes intense with concentration. She had been working in this kitchen for years, yet to most of the household she was practically invisible, just another pair of hands ensuring the wealthy family was well fed and their guests impressed. As she stirred a pot of fragrant soup, her mind wandered to the dishes she truly wanted to create. Recipes passed down through generations, infused with the warmth of family gatherings and the comfort of home. But here, in this gilded cage of a kitchen, such soulful cooking seemed out of place. The sound of raised voices from the dining room pulled her from her reverie. She recognized one immediately, Karim al-Rashid, the young heir to the family's vast fortune. His commanding tone carried easily through the halls, a mix of frustration and impatience coloring his words. "I don't care about the logistics. Make it happen." The slam of a door punctuated his statement. Amira shook her head slightly, returning her attention to the task at hand. She had seen Karim around the mansion, of course, tall, impeccably dressed, with sharp features that seemed permanently set in an expression of calculated determination. To him, the world was a chessboard, and people were merely pieces to be moved in service of his ambitions. She had overheard the staff gossiping about his latest venture, some grand project to solidify his position in the business world. The details were vague, but the pressure he was under was palpable. Every meal served, every event catered, seemed to carry the weight of his expectations. As if summoned by her thoughts, the kitchen doors swung open, and Karim strode in. The room fell silent, save for the gentle bubbling of pots and the low hum of appliances. He scanned the room, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Where's Hassan?" he demanded, referring to the head chef. The sous chef, a nervous man named Tariq, stepped forward. "He's out sick today, sir. Food poisoning, we think." Karim's jaw clenched. "Unacceptable. We have the gala dinner in 3 days. It's the most important event of the season, and he chooses now to fall ill." The tension in the room was palpable. Amira kept her head down, focusing on plating the appetizers for lunch. She had learned long ago that invisibility was often the safest option in moments like these, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. As Karim continued to berate the kitchen staff, his gesticulating arms knocked over a tray of carefully arranged canapes. The delicate morsels scattered across the floor, a colorful mess of wasted effort. Without thinking, Amira moved. In a flash, she was at the prep station, her hands flying as she assembled new appetizers. Fresh herbs, a drizzle of olive oil, a pinch of sumac. Within minutes, she had recreated the lost tray, each piece a small work of art. The kitchen had fallen silent, all eyes on her. Even Karim paused mid-sentence, watching as she worked with a grace and speed that seemed almost supernatural. As she set down the finished tray, their eyes met. For a moment, surprise flickered across Karim's face, quickly replaced by his usual mask of cool assessment. "You," he said, pointing at Amira. "What's your name?" "Amira, sir," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. He looked at the tray, then back at her. "How long have you worked here?" "5 years, sir." A frown creased his brow. 5 years. "And I've never noticed—" He trailed off, his gaze intensifying as he studied her. Amira stood her ground, meeting his stare with a calm dignity that belied her racing heart. She had spent years in the background, honing her skills and dreaming of a chance to truly showcase her talent. Now standing before the heir to the Al-Rashid fortune, she felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Karim's next words would change the course of her life forever. "The gala dinner," he said slowly, his mind clearly working through some internal calculation. "Hassan is out, and we need someone who can handle the pressure." A pause, heavy with potential. You'll be in charge of the kitchen for the gala." The room erupted in whispers. Amira blinked, certain she had misheard. "Sir, This isn't a request," Karim cut her off. "It's an opportunity. Prove your worth at the gala and we'll discuss your future here." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Fail, and well, I'm sure you understand the stakes." With that, he turned on his heel and strode out of the kitchen, leaving a wake of shocked silence behind him. Amira stood rooted to the spot, her mind reeling. The gala dinner, the most prestigious event of the season, attended by international dignitaries and business tycoons, and now, somehow, it rested on her shoulders. As the reality of the situation sank in, a mix of emotions washed over her. Fear, certainly. The pressure was immense and failure could cost her everything. But beneath that, a spark of excitement ignited. This was her chance, the opportunity she had dreamed of for years. She looked around the kitchen, at the faces of her colleagues, some concerned, others envious, all waiting to see what she would do next. Drawing a deep breath, Amira straightened her shoulders and picked up a notepad. "Right," she said, her voice clear and determined. "We have work to do. Tariq, I need an inventory of everything we have. Layla, start calling our suppliers. We're going to need the freshest ingredients they can get us." As the kitchen burst into action around her, Amira allowed herself a small smile. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges she couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time in years, she felt truly alive. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Amira, thrust suddenly into the role of head chef for the gala, found herself at the center of a culinary storm. The kitchen, once her refuge, had transformed into a battlefield where every decision could tip the scales between triumph and disaster. As dawn broke on the day of the gala, Amira stood at the helm, surveying her domain with a mix of determination and trepidation. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, testament to nights spent poring over menus and logistical plans. Yet there was a fire in her gaze that spoke of unwavering resolve. "Tariq, how are we on the lamb?" she called out, her voice carrying over the clatter of pots and pans. The sous chef looked up from his station, a sheen of sweat on his brow. "Marinating as we speak, chef. It'll be ready for the oven in an hour." Amira nodded, mentally ticking off another item on her endless list. She had chosen a menu that balanced traditional Arabic flavors with modern techniques, a culinary bridge between worlds that she hoped would impress the eclectic guest list. As she moved through the kitchen, tasting sauces and adjusting seasonings, Amira couldn't help but reflect on the whirlwind of the past few days. The initial shock of Karim's decision had given way to a steely determination. This was her chance, perhaps her only chance to step out of the shadows and prove her worth. The memory of her first planning meeting with Karim still sent a shiver down her spine. He had summoned her to his office, a sleek, modernist space that seemed to emphasize the gulf between their worlds. "Impress me," he had said, leaning back in his leather chair, dark eyes assessing her coolly. "Show me something these jaded palates haven't tasted before." Amira had squared her shoulders, meeting his gaze. "With all due respect, Mr. Al-Rashid, I don't aim to merely impress. I want to make them feel." A flicker of interest had crossed his face then. "Feel? Explain." "Food isn't just sustenance or a show of wealth," Amira had said, passion coloring her words. "It's memory, it's comfort, it's home. I want to serve dishes that remind people of childhood joys, of family gatherings, of moments that shaped them. Elegance with soul." For a moment, something had softened in Karim's expression, a glimpse of vulnerability quickly masked. "Ambitious," he had murmured. "Let's see if you can deliver." Now hours away from the gala, Amira was determined to do just that. She had poured her heart into every dish, infusing each recipe with memories of her grandmother's kitchen, the warm spices and slow-cooked stews that had been the backdrop of her childhood. A commotion at the kitchen entrance snapped Amira back to the present. Karim strode in, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Amira made in a year. His presence sent a ripple of tension through the room. "Status report," he demanded, coming to stand before Amira. She met his gaze steadily. "On schedule, Mr. Al-Rashid. The appetizers are prepped, main courses are underway, and desserts are chilling." Karim nodded, his eyes scanning the bustling kitchen. "And you're confident everything will be perfect?" "As confident as one can be in the face of the unexpected," Amira replied honestly. "We've prepared for every contingency we could think of." A ghost of a smile tugged at Karim's lips. Honesty. Refreshing. He paused, studying her for a moment. "You understand what's at stake here, don't you? This isn't just a dinner, it's a statement. These guests, their opinions can make or break empires." Amira felt the weight of his words settle on her shoulders. "I understand, sir, we won't let you down. See that you don't." With a final inscrutable look, Karim turned and left the kitchen. As the door swung shut behind him, Amira let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The pressure was immense, but she refused to let it overwhelm her. Instead, she channeled it, letting it fuel her creativity and drive. "All right, team," she called out, clapping her hands to gather everyone's attention. "We're in the final stretch. I know we're tired, I know we're stressed, but remember why we're here. We're not just cooking food, we're creating experiences, memories. Every dish that leaves this kitchen carries a piece of us with it. Let's make sure it's our very best." A chorus of agreement rose from the staff, their faces set with renewed determination. Amira felt a surge of pride and affection for this team that had rallied behind her, despite her sudden elevation. As the hours ticked by and the gala drew nearer, the kitchen thrummed with focused energy. Amira moved from station to station, tasting, adjusting, encouraging. She was in her element, conducting this culinary orchestra with a grace and authority that surprised even her. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first guests began to arrive, Amira stood before her team for one last pep talk. "This is it," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few hours. But remember, we're not just serving food, we're serving memories, emotions, experiences. Pour your heart into every dish and trust in what we've created." As the first orders began to come in, Amira took a deep breath, centering herself. The true test was about to begin. In the dining room beyond the kitchen doors, a gathering of the world's elite awaited, their expectations high and their judgments potentially life-changing. But in that moment, standing in the heart of her domain, Amira felt a sense of calm certainty. Whatever the outcome, she knew she had given everything to this moment. As she called out the first order, her voice rang with confidence. The gala was in full swing, a symphony of clinking glasses, murmured conversations, and the occasional burst of laughter. In the kitchen, Amira moved with calculated precision, her focus razor-sharp as she oversaw the seamless flow of dishes leaving her domain. "Table 7, 2 lamb tagines," she called out, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos. "Jamal, how's the sea base coming along?" "3 minutes, chef," came the response from across the kitchen. Amira nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Despite the pressure, there was an undeniable thrill in commanding this culinary ballet. Each perfectly executed dish felt like a personal triumph, a step closer to proving her worth. As she put the finishing touches on a plate of saffron-infused risotto, the kitchen doors swung open. Karim strode in, his expression unreadable. The room tensed, all eyes darting between him and Amira. "How are we doing?" he asked, his tone neutral. Amira straightened, meeting his gaze. "Smooth sailing so far, Mr. Al-Rashid. We're keeping pace with the orders, and initial feedback has been positive." Karim's eyebrow arched slightly. "Positive? Care to elaborate?" "We've had several compliments passed back to the kitchen," Amira explained, her confidence growing. "The ambassador from France was particularly impressed with the fusion of flavors in the appetizers." A flicker of approval crossed Karim's face, quickly masked. "Good. But remember, the real test is yet to come. The main course will make or break this evening." As if on cue, a server hurried in. "Chef, we have a situation. The Italian minister is requesting to speak with you. He says it's about the risotto." Amira felt a jolt of panic, quickly suppressed. She glanced at Karim, who gave a curt nod. "Go. Handle it." Taking a deep breath, Amira smoothed her chef's jacket and followed the server out into the opulent dining room. The change in atmosphere was immediate, from the controlled chaos of the kitchen to the refined elegance of the gala. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables draped in fine linen, where the world's elite dined and conversed. At a center table sat a distinguished-looking man in his 60s, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed back. As Amira approached, he looked up, his expression stern. "Ah, the chef," he said, his accent thick. "I must speak with you about this risotto." Amira steeled herself, ready for criticism. "Yes, Minister. Is there a problem with the dish?" To her surprise, the man's face broke into a wide smile. "Problem? Mio Dio, no. This is perhaps the finest risotto I've had outside of my mother's kitchen in Lombardy. I simply had to meet the chef responsible for such a masterpiece." Relief washed over Amira, followed quickly by a surge of pride. "Thank you, Minister. I'm honored by your praise. Tell me," he leaned in conspiratorially, "what is your secret? There's a depth of flavor here that's quite remarkable." Amira smiled, her passion for her craft shining through. "The secret, Minister, is time and memory. I slow-cook the stock with aromatics my grandmother used in her kitchen, a blend of herbs and spices that evoke the warmth of home." The Minister nodded appreciatively. "Ah, yes. I can taste the love in every bite. Bravissimo, chef. You have transported me back to my childhood with this dish." As Amira thanked him again and turned to leave, she noticed other diners watching the exchange with interest. The Minister's loud praise had caught their attention, and she could see curiosity and anticipation on many faces as they awaited their own main courses. Returning to the kitchen, Amira found Karim waiting, his eyes questioning. "Well?" "The Minister loved the risotto," Amira reported, unable to keep a note of pride from her voice. "He said it reminded him of his mother's cooking." For a moment, Karim's composure slipped, genuine surprise showing on his face. "Impressive," he murmured. Then, collecting himself, "But don't let it go to your head. We're not out of the woods yet." As he turned to leave, Amira called out, "Mr. Al-Rashid." He paused, looking back. "Thank you for this opportunity. Regardless of the outcome, I'm grateful for the chance to showcase my skills." Karim studied her for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes. "Prove that gratitude by ensuring the rest of the night goes as smoothly as it has so far." With that, he was gone, leaving Amira to ponder the complexity of the man who held her fate in his hands. The night progressed, each dish leaving the kitchen a testament to Amira's vision of elegance with soul. She infused traditional recipes with modern twists, presenting familiar flavors in exciting new ways. A Lebanese-inspired lamb shank was paired with a delicate French jus, while a classic Arabian dessert was deconstructed and reimagined with molecular gastronomy techniques. As the final desserts were plated and sent out, a palpable sense of accomplishment settled over the kitchen. Amira gathered her team, their faces showing a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. "We did it," she said simply, her voice filled with emotion. "Every single one of you should be proud. Tonight, we didn't just serve food. We served memories, emotions, experiences. Thank you for trusting in my vision and giving your all." A round of applause broke out, the kitchen staff's fatigue momentarily forgotten in the glow of their shared achievement. As Amira looked around at the smiling faces, she felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before in this mansion. The kitchen doors swung open once more, and Karim entered. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him expectantly. He surveyed the scene, his gaze finally settling on Amira. "The guests are departing," he said, his tone measured. "Many have expressed their compliments to the chef." A pause, heavy with anticipation. "It seems you've managed to exceed expectations, Amira." The use of her name, so casual yet significant, wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Amira felt a warmth bloom in her chest, a mixture of pride and something else she couldn't quite name. "Thank you, Mr. Al-Rashid," she replied, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. "We gave it our all." Karim nodded, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Indeed you did. We'll discuss the implications of tonight's success tomorrow. For now, good job, everyone. You've done the Al-Rashid name proud." As he turned to leave, his eyes met Amira's once more. In that brief moment, she saw something shift in his gaze, a newfound respect, perhaps, or the dawning of a realization. Then he was gone, leaving Amira to wonder about the new chapter that seemed to be unfolding in her life. As the kitchen erupted in celebratory cheers around her, Amira allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The night had been a triumph, yes, but it was also the beginning of something. A door had been opened, and whatever lay beyond it promised to change her life forever. With a deep breath, Amira turned back to her team, ready to lead them through the final tasks of the evening. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, but for now, she savored the sweet taste of success, knowing that she had taken the first step towards claiming her place in a world that had long overlooked her. The morning after the gala dawned bright and clear, but Amira barely noticed the sunlight streaming through her modest apartment windows. She sat at her small kitchen table, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. her mind replaying the events of the previous night. The gala had been a resounding success, far beyond what she had dared to hope. Yet, as the initial euphoria faded, a new anxiety took its place. What would happen now? Had she truly proven herself? Or was this simply a fleeting moment of glory? Her reverie was interrupted by the chirp of her phone. A text message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "Mr. Al-Rashid requests your presence at the mansion. Car will pick you up in 1 hour. Hassan." Amira's heart raced. This was it, the moment of truth. She rushed to get ready, her mind whirling with possibilities. As she dressed in her best clothes, a modest but elegant blouse and trousers, she couldn't help but feel like Cinderella preparing for the ball. Only this time, the magic wouldn't wear off at midnight. At least, she hoped it wouldn't. An hour later, Amira found herself seated in a plush leather chair across from Karim in his expansive office. The room seemed designed to intimidate, all sleek lines and imposing artwork. Karim himself was as immaculate as ever, his tailored suit a stark contrast to Amira's simple attire. "Amira," he began, his tone businesslike. "Last night was unexpected." She sat up straighter, chin lifted slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Al-Rashid. I'm glad the evening met your standards." A ghost of a smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Met them. You exceeded them. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. Several guests have already inquired about booking our services for their own events." Amira's eyes widened. "That's wonderful news, sir." Karim leaned forward, his gaze intense. "It is. And it presents us with an interesting opportunity. I've been considering expanding our family's interests into the hospitality sector for some time now. Last night's success has convinced me that the time is right." He paused, studying her reaction. Amira held her breath, sensing that something monumental was about to happen. "I'm proposing a new venture," Karim continued. "A high-end restaurant that combines the elegance our name is known for with the soul, as you put it, that you brought to the gala menu, and I want you to be a part of it." Amira felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "Me? But I'm just a remarkably talented chef who has been overlooked for far too long," Karim interrupted. "Your performance last night proved that. I'm offering you the position of head chef in this new establishment." The world seemed to spin around Amira. This was beyond her wildest dreams, a chance to step out of the shadows and into the spotlight, to create the kind of food she had always dreamed of. But as the initial shock wore off, caution set in. She had heard whispers about Karim's business dealings, about his reputation for using people to get what he wanted. "This is an incredible opportunity, Mr. Al-Rashid," she said carefully. "May I ask what my role would entail exactly?" Karim's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he hadn't expected questions. "You would have creative control over the menu, of course, full reign in the kitchen. In return, I expect nothing less than the excellence you displayed last night, every single night." The weight of his words hung in the air between them. Amira took a deep breath, steeling herself. "And what about the business side of things? Would I have any say in how the restaurant is run?" A flicker of surprise crossed Karim's face, quickly replaced by something that looked almost like respect. "You're not just a cook, are you, Amira? You're a businesswoman in the making." He leaned back in his chair, considering. "Very well, I propose a partnership, 70-30 split. I provide the capital and connections, you bring your culinary expertise and unique perspective. We'll make decisions together, but I'll have final say on major issues. Fair?" Amira's mind raced. It was more than fair. It was beyond anything she could have imagined 24 hours ago. But a small voice in the back of her mind urged caution. I'm honored by your offer, Mr. Al-Rashid," she said slowly. "But this is a big decision. Would it be possible for me to have a day or two to consider it?" For a moment, irritation flashed in Karim's eyes. He was clearly not used to having his offers questioned. But then, surprisingly, he nodded. "Prudent," he said, a note of approval in his voice. "You have 48 hours. I'll expect your answer by then." As Amira left the mansion, her head spinning with the possibilities before her, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change dramatically. The question was, would it be for better or worse? Over the next 2 days, Amira threw herself into research. She pored over business journals, studied successful restaurant launches, and even reached out to a cousin who had some experience in the hospitality industry. The more she learned, the more excited she became about the potential of Karim's offer. But doubts lingered. Could she trust him? Was she ready for such a monumental change in her life? On the evening of the second day, as the deadline loomed, Amira found herself walking through her old neighborhood. The familiar sights and smells grounded her, reminding her of where she came from and how far she had already come. As she passed her favorite childhood bakery, the scent of freshly baked bread wafting through the air, Amira had an epiphany. This feeling of home, of comfort, of memories, this was what she wanted to create in her food. And Karim's offer gave her the platform to do just that, on a scale she had never imagined possible. With newfound clarity, Amira pulled out her phone and dialed the number Karim had given her. "Mr. Al-Rashid, I've made my decision." "I'm in." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Karim's voice tinged with what sounded almost like relief. "Excellent. Come to the mansion tomorrow morning. We have work to do." As Amira hung up, she felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She was stepping into a new world, one filled with both opportunity and risk. But as she looked up at the starry sky, she felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The weeks that followed Amira's decision were a whirlwind of activity. The once quiet cook found herself thrust into a world of business meetings, property viewings, and endless discussions about concept and branding. Through it all, Karim was a constant presence, demanding, exacting, but also surprisingly supportive in his own way. One particularly grueling day, as they stood in the shell of what would become their restaurant, Amira felt overwhelmed by the enormity of the task ahead. The space was cavernous, all exposed brick and steel beams, nothing like the warm, inviting atmosphere she envisioned. So empty," she murmured, her voice echoing slightly in the vast room. Karim, who had been examining some blueprints, looked up at her words. For a moment, his usual mask of cool efficiency slipped, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath. "It is now," he said, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "But soon it will be filled with life, with laughter, with the aromas of your creations." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "This emptiness, it's not a void, it's possibility." Amira turned to him, surprised by this unexpected moment of poetry from the usually pragmatic businessman. "I didn't take you for an optimist, Mr. Al-Rashid." A wry smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I'm not, I'm a realist. And the reality is, with your talent and my business acumen, we're going to create something extraordinary here." His words bolstered Amira's confidence, reminding her why she had taken this leap in the first place. With renewed energy, she threw herself into the planning process, her creative vision slowly taking shape. As the weeks turned into months, the empty space transformed. Warm wood tones replaced cold steel, soft lighting fixtures were installed, and a state-of-the-art kitchen began to take form. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Amira and Karim often clashed over design decisions. He pushed for sleek modern aesthetics that would appeal to the city's elite, while she advocated for touches that would make the space feel more welcoming and authentic. One particularly heated argument erupted over the dining room centerpiece. "A fountain?" Karim scoffed, looking at Amira's sketch. "This isn't a mall, Amira. We're aiming for sophistication, not kitsch." Amira stood her ground, her eyes flashing. "It's not just any fountain. It's inspired by the courtyard fountains in traditional Arab homes. It's about creating an atmosphere, evoking memories and emotions." "Emotions don't pay the bills," Karim retorted. "We need to appeal to a high-end clientele." "And we will," Amira insisted. "But not by creating another soulless cookie-cutter fine dining establishment. We promised something different, remember? A fusion of elegance and authenticity." They glared at each other, neither willing to back down. The tension in the room was palpable, their staff watching the exchange with bated breath. Finally, Karim's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Fine," he said, his tone grudging but with a hint of respect. "We'll try it your way, but if it doesn't work..." "It will," Amira said confidently. "Trust me on this, Karim." It was the first time she had used his first name, and the moment wasn't lost on either of them. Something shifted in their dynamic that day, a newfound respect born from the fire of their shared passion for the project. As the opening day drew nearer, Amira found herself working longer and longer hours. She was determined to perfect every dish, to ensure that each bite told a story. Often, she would lose track of time, the kitchen becoming her whole world. One such night, as she experimented with a new dessert recipe, she was startled by a voice behind her. "Do you ever sleep?" She turned to find Karim leaning against the doorframe, his tie loosened and jacket slung over one arm. It was the most casual she had ever seen him. "Do you?" she countered, gesturing to his presence in the restaurant at what she now realized was well past midnight. He chuckled, a rare sound that transformed his usually serious face. "Touché." He approached the counter, eyeing the array of ingredients spread before her. "What are you working on?" "A new take on kunafa," Amira explained, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "I'm trying to balance the traditional sweetness with a subtle hint of cardamom and a touch of sea salt." To her surprise, Karim seemed genuinely interested. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the sample she had prepared. Amira nodded, watching intently as he took a bite. For a moment, his eyes closed, and an expression of pure pleasure crossed his face. "This," he began, then paused, seeming to search for words. "This is exceptional, Amira. It's like a memory I never knew I had." The praise, coming from the usually critical Karim, filled Amira with a warmth that had nothing to do with the kitchen's heat. "Thank you," she said softly. "That's exactly what I was aiming for." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the late hour and shared experience creating an unexpected intimacy. "We should both get some rest," Karim said finally, his voice unusually gentle. "The opening is just days away." As they left the restaurant together, walking out into the cool night air, Amira felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. They were on the cusp of something big, something that could change both their lives forever. "Karim," she said, as they were about to part ways. He turned, eyebrow raised in question. "Thank you for taking a chance on me for all of this." For a moment, the mask of the shrewd businessman fell away completely, and Amira saw a flash of genuine emotion in Karim's eyes. "No, Amira," he said softly. "Thank you for reminding me what it means to be passionate about something." As they went their separate ways, Amira couldn't help but feel that more than just a restaurant was taking shape between them. Something deeper, more complex, was slowly forming, as rich and layered as the dishes she created. The grand opening loomed just days away, promising to be a turning point, not just for their business venture, but for their lives. As Amira drifted off to sleep that night, her dreams were filled with the tantalizing aromas of possibility and the sweet taste of impending success. The night of the grand opening arrived with an electric atmosphere of anticipation. Oasis, as they had named the restaurant, stood ready to receive its first guests. The warm glow of carefully placed lighting illuminated the space, highlighting the perfect blend of modern elegance and traditional charm that Amira and Karim had fought so hard to achieve. In the kitchen, Amira moved with practiced precision, her team a well-oiled machine around her. The air was thick with the aromas of simmering sauces and freshly baked bread. Despite the pressure, there was a sense of calm purpose in her movements, a confidence born from months of preparation. 5 minutes to first seating, called out Tariq, who had followed Amira from the Al Rashid mansion to become her sous chef. Amira nodded, taking a deep breath. This was it. Everything they had worked for came down to this night. Just then, the kitchen door swung open, and Karim strode in. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, but Amira noticed a slight tension in his shoulders, a rare sign of nervousness from the usually unflappable businessman. "How are we looking?" he asked, his eyes scanning the bustling kitchen. "Ready," Amira replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "We're ready." Karim's gaze settled on her, and for a moment, the mask of the shrewd businessman slipped. "You've done amazing work, Amira," he said softly. "Whatever happens tonight, know that." The unexpected praise warmed her, and Amira felt a surge of affection for this complex man who had become so much more than just her business partner. "We did this together," she reminded him. "Now, let's go make some magic." As the first guests began to arrive, Amira watched from the kitchen as Karim greeted them, every inch the charming host. She marveled at his ability to make each person feel special, to remember tiny details about their lives and preferences. It was a skill as finely honed as her culinary expertise. The orders started flowing in, and Amira lost herself in the rhythm of the kitchen. Each dish that left her hands was a piece of art, a story told through flavors and textures. She infused traditional recipes with innovative twists, creating a dining experience that was both familiar and excitingly new. As the night progressed, whispers of praise began to filter back to the kitchen. Guests were raving about the food, the ambiance, the entire experience. Amira felt a growing sense of triumph, but she knew better than to let her guard down. The true test would come with the reviews, with the word of mouth that would make or break their fledgling restaurant. Near the end of the evening, as the last desserts were being served, Karim appeared in the kitchen doorway once more. This time, there was no hiding the excitement in his eyes. "Amira," he said, his voice low and urgent, "you need to come out here. Now." Puzzled, Amira followed him into the dining room. As she emerged from the kitchen, a hush fell over the remaining guests. Then, to her shock, applause erupted. Diners were standing, clapping enthusiastically, some even cheering. "What?" Amira began, but Karim cut her off with a gentle push forward. "They're clapping for you," he murmured. "The chef who gave them an unforgettable evening. Go on, take a bow." Overwhelmed, Amira managed a small curtsy, her cheeks flushing with a mix of embarrassment and pride. As she looked around the room, she saw genuine joy and appreciation on the faces of their guests. This, she realized, was what she had always dreamed of, creating not just meals but memories. As the last guest departed and the staff began the process of cleaning up, Amira found herself standing in the now quiet dining room, still trying to process the events of the evening. Karim joined her, loosening his tie with a sigh of relief. "Well," he said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, "I'd say that was a success." Amira laughed, the tension of the night finally releasing. "I think that might be an understatement." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both lost in thought. Then Karim turned to her, his expression serious. "Amira," he began, then paused, seeming to struggle with his words. I owe you an apology." She looked at him, surprised. "For what?" "For underestimating you," he said quietly. "When we started this venture, I saw you as a talented chef, yes, but I didn't fully appreciate what you were capable of. Tonight, you proved me wrong in the best possible way." Amira felt a lump form in her throat, touched by his honesty. "Thank you, Karim, that means a lot coming from you." He nodded, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I have something for you," he said, holding it out to her. "A token of my appreciation and my partnership." Curious, Amira opened the box to find a beautiful pen, its body inlaid with mother-of-pearl in intricate Arabic patterns. "It's beautiful," she breathed, running her fingers over the delicate design. "It was my father's," Karim explained, his voice soft. "He used it to sign his first major business deal. I thought you should have it. To sign our future contracts, to write our menus, to shape our shared future." The weight of the gesture wasn't lost on Amira. She knew how much Karim's family legacy meant to him, how carefully he guarded the Al-Rashid name and traditions. For him to share this piece of his history with her, "Karim, I don't know what to say," she murmured, looking up at him. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted between them. The air seemed to crackle with unspoken emotions, with possibilities neither had dared to acknowledge before. But before either could speak, the spell was broken by the sound of Tariq calling from the kitchen. "Chef, we need you to sign off on the inventory for tomorrow." Reality crashed back in, reminding them of the world beyond this moment. Amira cleared her throat, carefully placing the pen back in its box. "I should go handle that," she said, her voice slightly husky. Karim nodded, the mask of the businessman sliding back into place. "Of course, we both have early mornings tomorrow. The real work begins now." As Amira turned to go, she paused, looking back at Karim. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." He smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "No, Amira, thank you. For reminding me that sometimes the most valuable investments are in people, not just profits." As she walked back to the kitchen, Amira felt a sense of excitement and possibility wash over her. The grand opening had been a triumph, yes, but she sensed that it was just the beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever twists and turns their path might take, she knew that together, she and Karim were capable of creating something truly extraordinary. In the weeks following the grand opening of Oasis, success seemed to come in waves. Rave reviews poured in from food critics, reservations were booked solid months in advance, and the restaurant quickly became the talk of the town. Amira found herself thrust into a spotlight she had never imagined, her innovative dishes and compelling backstory captivating the city's culinary scene. But with success came new challenges. The pressure to maintain their stellar reputation was intense, and Amira often found herself working long into the night, tweaking recipes and dreaming up new creations. Karim, too, seemed to be constantly on the move, leveraging their success to secure new business opportunities and expand their brand. One particularly hectic evening, as Amira was experimenting with a new fusion dish in the kitchen, Karim burst through the doors, his eyes alight with excitement. "Amira, we've done it!" he exclaimed, waving a piece of paper in his hand. She looked up from her work, eyebrow raised in question. "Done what exactly?" "We've been invited to cater the International Business Forum next month," Karim explained, his usual composure giving way to genuine enthusiasm. "This is huge. Some of the most influential people in the world will be there. If we impress them, the sky's the limit," Amira finished, beginning to grasp the magnitude of the opportunity. Karim nodded, a rare grin spreading across his face. "Exactly, but it's not just about the business potential. This is a chance to showcase your talent, Amira, to share your vision with the world." The enormity of the task ahead began to sink in, and Amira felt a familiar mix of excitement and trepidation. "It's a big responsibility," she mused. "We'll need to create a menu that appeals to a diverse international palate, while still staying true to our roots. If anyone can do it, it's you," Karim said, his faith in her evident. Then, hesitating slightly, he added, "I was thinking, perhaps we could work on this together. Combine your culinary expertise with my knowledge of international tastes and preferences." Amira felt a warmth bloom in her chest at his words. Despite their growing success, moments of true collaboration between them had been rare lately, both caught up in their respective roles. "I'd like that," she said softly. Over the next few weeks, Amira and Karim fell into a new rhythm. Late into the night, after the restaurant had closed, they would sit in the quiet dining room surrounded by sample dishes and scribbled notes. They debated flavor combinations, discussed presentation ideas, and shared stories of their culinary experiences from around the world. These late-night sessions became a cherished time for both of them, a space where the lines between business partners and friends began to blur. Amira found herself looking forward to these moments when Karim's carefully maintained facade would slip, revealing the passionate, curious man beneath. One night, as they were tasting a particularly successful dish, a delicate sea bass with a saffron and rose petal sauce, Karim suddenly chuckled. "What's so funny?" Amira asked, tilting her head in curiosity. "I was just thinking," he said, his eyes twinkling with amusement, "about how far we've come. Do you remember that first day in the mansion kitchen, when I asked you to take over for the gala?" Amira smiled at the memory. "How could I forget? I was terrified." "And look at you now," Karim said, his voice soft with admiration. "You've become extraordinary, Amira, in ways I never could have predicted." Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment the air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken emotions. Amira felt her heart skip a beat, suddenly very aware of how close they were sitting, of the warmth of Karim's gaze. But before either could speak, the moment was interrupted by the shrill ring of Karim's phone. He answered it with a frown, his business persona sliding back into place as he dealt with some late-night crisis. As Amira began to clear away their tasting plates, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. The boundaries that had once seemed so clear were becoming increasingly blurred, and she wasn't sure whether to be excited or terrified by the prospect. The day of the International Business Forum arrived with a flurry of activity. Amira and her team worked tirelessly, preparing dish after dish with meticulous care. As she put the finishing touches on the centerpiece, a stunning display of Middle Eastern and international flavors artfully arranged to resemble a blooming desert flower, she felt a hand on her shoulder. Turning, she found Karim standing behind her, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Are you ready for this?" he asked softly. Amira took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied with a small smile. As they stepped out into the grand ballroom where the forum was being held, Amira felt a surge of pride. The room was filled with the world's elite, business tycoons, political leaders, cultural icons, and they were all here to taste her food, to experience the vision she and Karim had created together. The evening progressed like a dream. Amira moved from table to table, explaining her dishes and basking in the praise and wonder of the guests. She caught glimpses of Karim throughout the night, watching him work the room with his usual charm and grace. As the event drew to a close, Amira found herself cornered by a group of impressed culinary critics, all clamoring for details about her techniques and inspiration. She was so engrossed in the conversation that she didn't notice the commotion on the other side of the room until it was too late. A hush fell over the crowd, and Amira looked up to see Karim locked in what appeared to be a heated argument with a striking woman in a sleek black dress. The woman's voice, sharp with anger, carried across the now silent room. "Did you really think you could just cut me out, Karim? After everything we built together?" Amira felt her heart sink as realization dawned. This must be Layla, Karim's former business partner, the one whose ideas he had allegedly exploited before discarding her. As all eyes in the room turned to watch the unfolding drama, Amira saw the carefully constructed world she and Karim had built begin to crumble. The triumphant evening suddenly felt hollow, overshadowed by the specter of past betrayals and unanswered questions. In that moment, standing amid the wreckage of their perfect night, Amira realized that the true test of their partnership, and whatever else was growing between them, was only just beginning. The aftermath of the International Business Forum debacle hung over Oasis like a dark cloud. Though the event itself had been a culinary triumph, the public confrontation between Karim and his former partner Layla had become the talk of the town. Rumors and speculations ran rampant, threatening to overshadow all that Amira and Karim had built. In the days that followed, Amira found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The restaurant continued to bustle with activity, but there was an undeniable tension in the air. Karim had become distant, spending more time locked away in his office than in the kitchen or dining room where he and Amira had once worked so closely together. One evening, as Amira was closing up the kitchen, she heard the sound of breaking glass from the direction of Karim's office. Concerned, she made her way there, knocking softly on the door. "Karim, is everything all right?" There was a moment of silence before his voice, uncharacteristically rough, called out, "Come in, Amira." She entered to find Karim standing by the window, a broken whiskey glass at his feet. He looked disheveled, his usually impeccable appearance marred by loosened tie and rolled-up sleeves. The sight of him so vulnerable tugged at Amira's heart. "I'm sorry," he said, not meeting her eyes. "I'll clean this up." Amira moved to him, carefully avoiding the shards of glass. "Let me help," she said softly. As she bent to pick up the larger pieces, she asked, "Do you want to talk about it?" Karim sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "What is there to say? My past has come back to haunt me, and it's threatening everything we've built." Amira straightened, meeting his gaze steadily. "Then maybe it's time you told me the truth, all of it." For a long moment, Karim was silent, seemingly wrestling with himself. Then, with a defeated slump of his shoulders, he began to speak. "Layla and I, we were more than just business partners. We were in love, or at least I thought we were. We had grand plans to revolutionize the hospitality industry in this city, but I got greedy. When a big investor showed interest in our ideas, I saw an opportunity to make it big, but they only wanted to work with me, not us as a team." He paused, shame evident in his voice. "I convinced myself that I could do it alone, that I deserved the success more than she did, so I cut her out, took credit for our shared ideas, and left her behind." Amira listened, her heart heavy. "And now she's back for revenge?" Karim nodded. "She's threatening to expose my past actions, to ruin my reputation, our reputation. Everything we've built with Oasis is at risk." The weight of his confession hung in the air between them. Amira felt a mix of disappointment and sympathy warring within her. The man before her was not the confident, infallible businessman she had come to know, but a flawed human being capable of making grave mistakes. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" she asked quietly. Karim finally met her eyes, and the vulnerability she saw there took her breath away. "Because I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that if you knew the truth about my past, you'd see me differently." that you'd leave, just like everyone else has when they discovered who I really am. The raw honesty in his words struck Amira to her core. Without thinking, she reached out, taking his hand in hers. Karim, we all have pasts, we all make mistakes. What matters is what we do now, how we choose to move forward. He looked at their joined hands, then back at her face, hope flickering in his eyes. And how do we move forward from this? Amira took a deep breath, her mind racing. First, we need to be honest with ourselves, with each other, and with the public. No more secrets, no more hiding from the past. Karim nodded slowly, a hint of his old determination returning to his eyes. You're right, but it could cost us everything. Are you prepared for that? Amira squeezed his hand, a small smile playing on her lips. We built Oasis on a foundation of authenticity and trust. If we stay true to those values, I believe we can weather any storm. As they stood there, hand in hand in the dim light of Karim's office, Amira felt a shift in their relationship. The walls that had separated them, boss and employee, businessman and chef, past and present, began to crumble. In their place, a new understanding began to form, built on shared vulnerability and mutual respect. Over the next few weeks, Karim and Amira worked tirelessly to address the scandal head-on. They issued a public statement, with Karim taking full responsibility for his past actions and expressing deep remorse. They reached out to Layla, inviting her to meet and discuss a way forward that could benefit all parties. The process was far from easy. They faced backlash from some quarters, lost a few high-profile clients, and had to navigate a media frenzy that threatened to engulf them. But through it all, Amira stood firmly by Karim's side, her unwavering support a balm to his battered spirit. Their partnership deepened, evolving into something neither had anticipated. Late nights in the kitchen were now filled not just with culinary experiments, but with heartfelt conversations about their hopes, fears, and dreams. The more they shared, the closer they became, their personal and professional lives intertwining in ways that both excited and terrified them. One evening, as they sat on the restaurant's rooftop garden, watching the sun set over the city skyline, Karim turned to Amira, his eyes soft with an emotion she had never seen before. Amira, he began, his voice low and intense. I need to tell you something. She looked at him, her heart racing at the seriousness in his tone. What is it? Karim took a deep breath, as if steeling himself. These past few months, working through this crisis with you, it's made me realize something. You've seen me at my worst. You know my darkest secrets, and yet you're still here. You've stood by me, challenged me, made me want to be a better man. He paused, reaching out to take her hand. What I'm trying to say is, I think I'm falling in love with you, Amira. The words hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Amira felt her breath catch in her throat, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through her. She had been fighting her growing feelings for Karim for so long, convinced that their partnership was too important to risk. But now, looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability and hope there, she realized that perhaps the greatest risk would be not taking this chance at all. Karim, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, I think I'm falling in love with you too. As their lips met in a tender kiss, the last rays of sunlight painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Amira felt as if a new chapter was beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever obstacles they might face, she knew that together they could create something truly extraordinary. In the kitchen, in business, and in life. The story of Oasis, she realized, was far from over. In fact, the most exciting part was just beginning. 1 year had passed since that fateful evening on the rooftop garden, and Oasis had weathered its storm, emerging stronger and more vibrant than ever. Amira and Karim's relationship, both personal and professional, had blossomed in ways neither could have imagined when they first embarked on this journey together. The restaurant had evolved, much like its owners. While it retained the elegance and innovation that had put it on the map, there was now an added layer of warmth and authenticity that seemed to permeate every aspect of the dining experience. Guests often remarked that eating at Oasis felt like coming home, even if home was a place they'd never been before. On this particular evening, Oasis was buzzing with excitement. It was the night of their first annual Flavors of Unity event, a celebration of culinary diversity that brought together chefs from all walks of life to create a unique dining experience. Amira stood in the kitchen, surveying the controlled chaos around her with a sense of pride. Chefs from local food trucks worked alongside Michelin-starred veterans, each contributing their unique perspective to the night's menu. In one corner, a young refugee chef was teaching Tariq the secret to her family's beloved falafel recipe. In another, a renowned French pastry chef was collaborating with a local grandmother on a fusion dessert that promised to be the talk of the night. As she made her way through the kitchen, offering guidance and encouragement, Amira caught sight of a familiar face entering through the back door. Layla, Karim's former partner, now an ally and occasional collaborator, smiled as she approached. "Amira, the place looks amazing," Layla said, embracing her warmly. "I can't believe how far you've all come." Amira returned the hug, marveling at how much had changed. After months of difficult conversations and hard work, they had managed to turn a potential disaster into an opportunity for growth and reconciliation. Layla was now a respected consultant for Oasis, her expertise and creativity helping to push the restaurant to new heights. "We couldn't have done it without you," Amira replied sincerely. "Your input has been invaluable." As they chatted, Karim appeared, looking dashing in a perfectly tailored suit. He greeted Layla with a friendly nod before turning to Amira, his eyes softening as they always did when he looked at her. "Everything's set in the dining room," he reported, his hand finding its way to the small of Amira's back. "Are we ready to begin?" Amira took a deep breath, feeling the familiar mix of excitement and nerves that preceded every service. "As ready as we'll ever be," she said with a smile. "Let's do this." The evening unfolded like a beautiful symphony, each course telling a story of cultural exchange and culinary passion. Amira moved between the kitchen and the dining room, her heart swelling with pride as she watched guests from all walks of life, bonding over shared plates and new flavors. As the dessert course was being served, a stunning creation that married Middle Eastern baklava with French crème brûlée, Karim clinked his glass, calling for attention. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. "First, I want to thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice carrying easily across the room. "This event, this restaurant, this journey, none of it would be possible without each and every one of you." He paused, his gaze finding Amira in the crowd. "But there's one person in particular who deserves recognition. Someone who saw potential where others saw risk, who believed in the power of second chances, and who taught me that true success isn't measured in profits, but in the lives we touch and the community we build." Karim extended his hand, and Amira found herself moving towards him, drawn by the love and admiration in his eyes. "Amira," he said, taking her hand in his, "you've been my partner in every sense of the word. You've challenged me, inspired me, and made me a better person. And now, I'm hoping you'll agree to be my partner in one more way." A collective gasp went through the room as Karim lowered himself to one knee, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. "Amira," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "will you marry me?" Time seemed to stand still as Amira looked down at Karim, her mind whirling with memories of their journey together. From that first chaotic night in the mansion kitchen to this moment, they had faced challenges, celebrated triumphs, and grown in ways neither could have imagined. With tears of joy in her eyes, Amira nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." The room erupted in cheers as Karim slipped the ring, a beautiful piece that combined traditional Arabic designs with modern elegance, onto her finger. As he stood and pulled her into a kiss, Amira felt as if her heart might burst with happiness. Later that night, as the last of the guests departed and the staff began the process of cleaning up, Amira and Karim stood in the quiet of the empty dining room. The fountain that had once been a point of contention between them burbled softly in the background, a reminder of how far they'd come. "Can you believe it?" Amira mused, leaning into Karim's embrace. "If someone had told me a year ago that this is where we'd end up," Karim chuckled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it? But I wouldn't change a thing." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Amira reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. It hadn't been easy. There had been struggles, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But through it all, they had persevered, their shared passion for food and for each other carrying them through the darkest times. Oasis had become more than just a restaurant. It was a testament to the power of second chances, to the beauty that could arise from cultural fusion, and to the transformative nature of love, both for food and for each other. As they finally turned to leave, hand in hand, Amira knew that this was just the beginning of their story. There would be new challenges to face, new heights to reach, and new flavors to explore. But with Karim by her side, and their shared vision guiding them, she was ready for whatever the future might bring. After all, the most beautiful recipes were often those that combined unexpected ingredients. And the story of Amira and Karim, of Oasis and the community they had built, was turning out to be the most exquisite recipe of all.